Hello, and welcome to American Amnesia. I'm Cliff Garner, your host. And just a few things right off the bat. I went to the store and I picked up a couple books, but I also found this. I have mentioned it before. This is the Pagan's book that I was talking about. Um, its full name is The End of Traditional Religion and the Rise of Christianity, and the main title is Pagans. It's by a guy named James J. O'Donnell. Apparently, he writes about the end of uh, the Roman Empire and the rise of the medieval kingdoms that come in its place. Good book, actually. He goes into uh, uh, how we really don't understand that time period at all. And we don't have a good imagination for it. And even the idea of comparing modern India, with its many gods, is not a very fair analogy to Rome of the time of Christianity's rise. It just doesn't quite work. One of the things that he points out that I find fascinating personally is that the Roman culture was far more into sacrifice. And that the smell of blood and the witnessing of the sacrifice and the meat that came as a result and everything else, all this was a rather pervasive kind of thing, whereas you don't really see that so much in India, where a lot of it's become more philosophical. But he does a good job for the most part. I like what I read of it. I'm about halfway through with it, and I picked it out of my stack of stuff again and started back in on it. And one of the things that does bother me a bit, and I understand why he does it. He is apparently himself an atheist or an agnostic, one or the other. But he keeps going over and over on the idea that the gods are imaginary, and I think that for me takes away some of the interest in it. It's just that it becomes a distraction because he keeps coming to that point. But I think he does that really more for readers of more of a secular mindset that don't have a faith any longer, and to remind them that that there is a concept of an other reality that we don't perceive in our three-dimensional world of weights and measures. So that I do understand. It's just once in a while it becomes a bit of a distraction. Another one. I study a lot of language. One of my favorites is Italian. My thesis was translating the first 5 cantos of Dante's Inferno into modern verse and commenting extensively on every sentence, at least, and actually quite a bit more than just every sentence. Basically, I've got pretty much the framework of the whole thing done, because the first 5 really do. The first one is an encapsulation of the other 99. So, but anyway, Italian for dummies. I had to take that when I saw that at one of the used bookstores. So it's like $1. It couldn't go wrong. Then I picked up a couple of these two today. Latin literature. This is just kind of a brief reader. It's got some Cicero, Livy, Ovid. Ovid's fun. Pliny, the Vulgate, Bede, Cadman, and some medieval poetry. It's just kind of a general reader, and it keeps me in practice. So I picked it up, and this is kind of a fun thing for me. What a sick man I am. And then there's this, and this is really actually why I'm even bothering. The City of the Ladies by Christine de Pizan. This was an early feminist work, and Christine de Pizan, fascinating lady, one of the early females to write in medieval times. Actually, she 1200s, I think, or 13. Joan of Arc. She wrote poems dedicated to Joan of Arc that were pretty remarkable. And she was a French writer, but she was originally from Pisa, and she adopted the French culture of her husband, and it was a very intelligent and well-read and well-written person. She was an artist, a lovely poet, and a good writer, and intellectual. She got involved in a very heavy discussion on the Roman de la Rose, which is a classic of French literature, Old French, by Guillaume de Lory, who wrote the first part of it, and I think that that part of the work was mostly alchemical, and that there was certain occult teachings within it. And then later on picked up by Jean de Meun, one of the great writers of early vernacular French. And he translated the what is that? Consolatio Philosophiae, the Consolation of Philosophy, by Boethius, the great scholastic writer of the towards the end of the actually just after the end of the Roman Empire in the West, and he was to be executed by Theodoric the Great, the Ostrogoth king, for treason, and he was trying to get the Byzantine emperor to overthrow Theodoric and reassert his control over Rome and Italy. A very interesting character, a very interesting set of stuff all around. But she got involved in the argument on it, in which men actually defended the Roman de la Rose as a teaching guide for boys to instruct them on the proper way to deal with women, which is mainly actually sexually taking charge of them, and there's even implications that he may have raped the girl at the end of de Meung's part. Rather controversial, great controversy there. There were even churchmen that defended it. It's one of the things I disagree with C.S. Lewis on. I think that there's better ways of teaching young men how to deal with sexuality than that. But the first part I find particularly interesting, and there's a lot of symbolism involved, and a lot of analogy and everything else that you expect from a good medieval writing. And the second part is sometimes horrendous. It's a little excessive. It's often hard to read. In my opinion, there may have been some other occultic messages possibly within it. Although I tried to write a paper on that, but it was it kind of stalled out. The lack of information is rather appalling there. But at the same time, there was still the first part. There was quite a bit, and I had correspondence with a fellow, I forget his name now, that had written a paper previously on that particular part. Rather interesting stuff. At any rate, but that's just the Christine de Pizan. I was really freaked out to see that at the bookstore there, and actually in Decatur, and that was yesterday, and I was rather pleased to get a second copy of it. This is I have a previous copy of all of her works, and it's in a very nice volume of academic criticism. And this one has its own criticism, which I'm going to read. And the book of the City of the Ladies is kind of interesting. It talks about and there's a lot of analogy within it too. But it's how women are kind of a bulwark of civilization in the face of bad morals, bad faith, and just bad everything, and that women actually help preserve civilization. So that's part of it all. There's more to it than that. But it's an early feminist work, and actually a very readable one, kind of fun. So at any rate, that's the books there. There's a couple other things. Is that on here? No. Okay. It must be here then. But yeah, that's what it was. There was an article here from Breitbart. I'm not really going to go into the article so much. Looks like Ivanka Trump is helping push the White House agenda on human trafficking, and a lot of people, they're all virtue signaling and saying how, we need to have open borders and we shouldn't regulate who comes through and blah blah blah. Immigrants make us strong. Well, yeah, I don't have a problem with immigration. But the problem is that letting people in without regulation or any kind of knowing who they are and why they're going through and everything else does tend to also play into the hands of those who make money on trafficking people. And this is something that all your virtue signaling and all your sloganeering and all your yelling and screaming is only clouding the issue, people. The fact is that the people that have profited by moving people from Mexico into the U.S., you're only playing into their hands. And this is a form of human slavery. It has to stop. Stop it. Stop it. Do you need the cheap nannies that much? Is that what the deal is? Or are you just trying to make everybody think that you're such a good person by not paying any attention to what's going on around you? Is that what it is? Stop it. Men, women, and children have been bought and sold all around the world, and it is a form of human slavery. You are allowing it, and you are promoting it. And if you don't stop them at the borders, then what happens? They get pushed in and just nobody does anything to find out what's going on there. How do you think that they move women from Eastern Europe to China and put those women into houses of prostitution. How do you think they do that? It's because they don't regulate it. They're not stopping the people at the border and finding out what the deal is. Are you out of your minds? I think you are. I really do. I think you are so involved with opposing anything to do with Trump because I don't know what crawled up your ass. But you ought to pull it out. It's time to pull it out and start actually using your head and thinking a little bit. You've lost your minds. Get them back. It's time to get over it. Put on your big boy pants and your big girl pants, and let's go on with life. You know, you don't have to agree with what the man does, but the thing is that there's a way of going about it. And opposing everything just because you don't, you know, he says one thing, you're going to say the other? That's not thinking. You're letting him set the agenda for you, and you're looking mighty bad. The rest of the world knows what's going on. You don't. You need to start reading. You need to start thinking, too, because it's obvious that you haven't thought this through. Not at all. And we're not even talking about terrorism or anything of that sort. I'm talking about human trafficking, where people are being purchased and sold. People are buying and selling children, and moving them across the borders. You know that. That's what Pizzagate is all about. Now, you know, whether or not Pizzagate involving John Podesta is valid or not, but there is enough there to be investigated. And by saying, oh, that's all been disproven. No, it hasn't. You haven't even touched it. All you've done is said, oh, it's not true. Really? Is that proof? I'm sorry. There are people actually digging stuff up. There are people getting arrested all around the U.S., Canada, Mexico, several European countries are being arrested for pedophilia, trafficking children, and trafficking women. Wake up. Start reading some newspapers from other countries. Maybe you'll start getting it. Your CNN is betraying you. They have anyway. They've been doing it for a long time. They've been screwing you for a long time, people. And you're going to just take it? Well, just then bend over. But don't cry to me about it, because I'm tired of listening to it. So, start waking up. I'm going to return to this subject more than once. It's something that I've been really, really all about. You know, I end this stuff. I've been talking about it for a long time. I saw it all over the world when I traveled. You stick your head in the sand. You want to pretend it doesn't exist. Well, wake up. There's some serious consequences, and there's some people that are getting really, really abused, and some of them are dying. And you're going to sit there and just talk about how good you feel about yourself. Well, you know something? I don't feel good about you. A lot of other people don't either. And if you can look in the eyes of those children that are being abused and say this crap, I don't know how you can live with it. That's one thing. But I've been wanting to get to another issue on some of my earlier broadcasts. The one called A New Paradigm, it was came out, when was that published? The 9th of this month. I had a few people write me. My friend the Buckethead Baptist, we'll have to do a show together sometime, Mr. Bucket. It'll be a lot of fun. And I'll write you soon, not a problem. And also, my buddy Juan wrote, And, well, before I get to his, shout out to Andy Shea, another old friend. Andy, hope everything's going well with you, my friend. We don't have to agree on everything. I think we're principally in agreement that things could be worse. Definitely. But at any rate, Juan, my buddy Juan from, originally from the States and now living in Romania, had written me, and I'll read what he has to say because I'd like to address this a little bit and clarify a little. And again, this is a topic that we will return to. But he says, hello, Mr. Garner. I'm not so convinced it's a new paradigm per se, as such, right? What I'm seeing is the death throes of the old paradigm, but I'm not sure it's been supplanted by a new paradigm. Yet. Not yet. Okay. What I see is the social construction of reality that has been deinstitutionalized and decentralized. The previous manipulations have been amplified, echoism really, and exposed simultaneously. In short, we are experiencing untruth fatigue. The masses or asses politics is beginning to fail as more people wake up, a la the Matrix. On the one hand, you have those who are new to freedom, i.e. seeing the real reality with consummate free will and critical thinking and discovering their true identity or role, and those who want to escape freedom, a la Erich Fromm, by replugging themselves into what they know is a grand illusion because it's more thoughtless and minimizes cognitive dissonance. Really good points on, and I do think that you've got a lot here, and hopefully maybe we can get you on the air too one of these days, and we can hash some stuff out. I really do miss talking to you a lot. Good friends. But I think the paradigm is something that is taking shape and form, and we don't see all the contours yet. I do agree with that. And we are seeing the death throes of the old paradigm. The old paradigm basically has been a bipolar divide between left and right, and they've what they've done is they have tried to sell us with an idea. Right here, I'll use something else here. Oh, okay. Basically, when we look at statistics, what we see is a bell curve, right? So you have basically a situation, right? There we go. It starts low on either side, and it crests in the middle, right? Like a shape of a bell. What they've been trying to sell us is this. And I need to find the book that I used to use as a reference on this. But this is what they're trying to sell us on. And you see here, what you have is a trough. And you got two peaks on either side here. You see that? That is a statistical reality that they want us to accept. That on the extremes, it is high. And on the middle, it's low. So left and right, never the twain shall meet. This is a kind of a secular Manichaeanism that they've been selling us for a long time. And this good versus evil concept where not only are you right, but you are virtuous by virtue of believing what you believe. And that by being with that side, you have to be opposed to the other side because it is by nature evil. And I think that this false dichotomy, this false dilemma, this false choice has been thrust upon us for so long that we just kind of accept it as true. But I think people have come to the point where they're starting to question it. And not only just question it, but seriously reject it. It's about time. The two-party system has been a total fiasco. And it's good to see it start to crumble. What we had in the last several elections, when we had the end of the Reagan era with Bush 1, actually, Papa Bush, in his single term. We should actually recognize the Reagan era as an attempt to seriously reform the system. I was not a big fan of Reagan. And looking back on him, I'm still not a big fan of his. He did some great things, and he did some pretty crappy ones. He continued the process of deindustrializing the U.S. that had really taken up steam big time with Carter. And he also promoted a lot of the same CIA activities that were being done by Carter too. I mean, he really didn't change it a whole lot. And Carter, was just extending the stuff from Nixon, and Nixon got it from LBJ, and LBJ got it from Nixon before him, and we can see the JFK years also as being another attempt to reform the system that was just not wanting to reform. And I think that the rise of the military-industrial complex, along with the great secrecy, the CIA, which kind of glommed onto all that after being put into law by Truman, that this militaristic kind of thing just took on a life of its own, and it has been in place ever since. With Reagan, what happened is that it mutated into the neocons, which were actually people coming into the Republican Party from the Democrats. And Reagan himself was a former Democrat too. Okay, so what we have is a similar situation as those years of JFK and with Reagan right now with Trump, because we do have an outsider kind of regime, and Kennedy was too. I mean, he wasn't. Well, his father was more of a mobster, and he was the one that was trying to legitimize the family, basically, if you really look at it. So that what you see is actually something other than what it was. But perception is still important. Politics and perception are hand in hand. And we do have a perception of both of them as being particularly good. And do note that Reagan, other than JFK, Reagan has been those two are the ones that took a bullet, literally. I mean, they threatened Ford. It was kind of a non-entity, but I mean, that's completely different. They actually shot Reagan, And they actually shot JFK, and it was far more fatal. And there's been an attempt on at least one with a gun on Trump. There was a guy rushed the stage on him and everything else. So there's this kind of I don't know, kind of a hidden violence, a threat of violence that has dogged Trump ever since he got elected. Not to mention since has been sworn in, and he's only been in office a little bit more than a month. So welcome to the new era. But the thing is that I think we're seeing this paradigm shift taking place, because we were hoping for Obama to be more of the outsider than he actually was. Obama was initially elected with the idea of hope and change. As it turned out, especially after the first 2 years, when we saw what kind of hope and change that he was actually talking about, a lot of us were actually glad to see that he didn't have the ability to actually do much after that. And sorry about that, sir, but you really did a botched job with the health care. And that's all I can say. It was a botched job. I've never seen anything with more secrecy and come out unveiled, and it's like, well, what is this Tinker Toy thing? That I had real problems with the ideas that he was kicking around anyway. But what he actually put out there was a monstrosity. It never did address the costs, and it's turned out to be exactly what everybody predicted it would be, a fiasco. It's a mess. So changing it, yeah. Well, you're not going to be able to get rid of it altogether. There's a lot of people that are reliant upon it now, and you can't take away their insurance and just let them die. That's not feasible. But as far as it goes, what was actually the actual end product was a fiasco. It was a mess. It's an abomination. An abomination. An abomination by abomination. There you go. But it's a mess, and it shouldn't never have been that way. It should have been taken care of. So what we expected when he got it first put in, everybody realized that he was further to the left, and that's fine. There's a point where, the reality of a social democracy, it's like, okay, that's what you're going to do it right. And had he been a real socialist, I think that he would have done it right. I wish he were. At least he would have had some principles. Instead, he talked a good game, and he ended up selling out to the bankers. That was where the problem was. He had the chance to put back Glass-Steagall. He had the chance to break up the banks. He had a chance to do a lot of this stuff, and didn't do it. He talked a good game. But instead, what he did is he played into the hands of the same internationalist, globalist, warmongering people that basically are taking over the world economically. Oh, imagine that. Bankers, big industrialists, and they're moving all the jobs overseas, and he wondered why everybody got irritated with him. Well, that's why. And he's the first black president, so people didn't want him to fail. I didn't want him to fail. I wanted him to do a halfway decent job of it. He didn't. He screwed up. He's the biggest warmonger I've seen in my lifetime. What have we got? I mean, we had Iraq, we had Afghanistan. He pulls us out of Iraq, although he left all the mercenaries in place, then puts us back in because he blew it in Syria and Libya. Oh, two more places where he had wars. Yemen. So let's see. 1, 2. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen. There's 5. Pakistan, 6. That's not even going to Africa. Because we got Uganda, 7. Yeah, you remember that Coney 2012 thing. We ended up going there. Did you know that? Mali. We actually went to Mali. Actually, I applauded him on that one. Because what had happened is that Erdogan was trying to drag us into Syria. And, people say, well, he talked about having that red line that you just don't cross, right? And then there was that gas attack. You know who did the gas attack was Erdogan. He was busted on that in Turkey. Yeah, I'm telling you, Assad didn't do it. That was a whitewash by our government to make Erdogan look better than he was. Now, he wasn't going to get pulled in on that one. And that was to his credit. I gave credit where it was due on that. He took us over to Mali instead. And he told Mr. Erdogan, hey, sorry, can't help. And Erdogan kept trying to drag us in. Why did he want us in there so badly? Well, he wanted us to take out Assad. But Obama actually saw the situation. Russia had brought in Spetsnaz, and it had parked a couple of battleships there in the ports there. What is that? Homs or something? Or Holmes? I don't remember. But they're in one of their main ports is where they parked their ships. And when they did that, there was no bringing in the U.S. troops to fight against the Russians. It wasn't happening. That was smart. That was one smart move that he did militarily. And, he takes it on the chin from the neocons. Well, they're not going to be happy no matter what. But the fact is that they were in bed with him. They were happy he was going to all these wars. Fighting it. But what was it? We're up to, 5. Uganda, Somalia, Sudan. You see where this is going. Not to mention that we probably have had CIA people on the ground in Egypt at the very least. At least once, probably twice. Bring in the Muslim Brotherhood and then to get them out. Oh boy. So, this whole thing, he had more wars going on than that. I mean, good grief. We were in the Congo for a while. Central African Republic. That's 10. Hello? There's something wrong here. He was not a Peace Prize person. I mean, he got the prize, but he didn't deserve it, people. Quit fooling yourself. So anyway, the thing is that the disappointment with Obama changed people's expectations quite a bit, and we were all looking for a new hope and change, and a lot of people were looking at Paul. Well, what had happened with Paul is that he got screwed out of the nomination just like Bernie Sanders was later on with the Democrats this last election cycle. That forced the Republicans into another position because they ended up doing just what the Democrats did. They put up a baby for the one world globalists. Mitt Romney. Here you had the banker. You had the banker, and then you had Obama, the banker's lackey. Did we want the slave or did we want the master? That's the question. We chose the slave. I don't know if it was the right choice or the wrong one, but it surely wasn't a good one. And it wasn't much of one. Because we ended up with that bullshit one way or the other. And they crammed it down our throats. No matter what you might say about Paul, at least he was an alternative. That's what we're dealing with. The selling out of the United States and its people. Taking it back? Well, yeah, that's kind of the idea. And the possibility of doing so is there. I haven't quite addressed all that issue, Juan, but I do want to come back to it, and like I say, we are seeing the contours of this paradigm as it's shaping. And one of the things that I think it was a very key issue, and I think it'll come out more when I talk about it again, probably the next time, is that when they changed the gay rights thing with the Marriage Act, I think that just really kind of was everything was hurtling towards this point, and it hit the wall, and now suddenly we end up with something completely different. This identity politics has come to an end, and with Obama, it had picked up so much steam, and everybody that opposed Obama was a racist or a homophobe or whatever. Can't do that anymore, and they're still doing it, and you see what's happening from that. That this constant accusation is not only demonstrably false, but people aren't affected by it anymore. They've come to the point where they're so fed up with hearing that as an argument that the response is not to just cringe and say, don't call me that. It's like, well, screw you. If that's the best you've got, and you don't bother proving even that, then you don't have an argument. You don't have something that you're standing for. And now that excuse has been taken away. It has been taken away. I mean, as far as it goes, you don't have a legal basis for racism. You don't have a legal basis for homophobia. There's no cause in the Constitution to hate someone for their religion. It's not there. We're all kind of equal. In fact, we should be anyway. I mean, that was the idea of making the country the way it was. And so now that we have it to where it's probably about as good as you're going to see it as far as equality goes, there's no more fingers to point. You've lost it. I predicted that as soon as Obama was elected. I hoped he would do a better job of mending the racial divides. He didn't. He failed at the one thing and that's the one thing that should have been a gimme. He should have done so well with that, just by saying something. And he did nothing. His failure, though, I think we learned from it anyway. And I think that when people abused the terminology and pointed their finger, you're a racist because you don't accept everything he says, Obama. And it's like, well, how's that work? I mean, he's not the idea. I'm not rejecting his idea because he's black. I'm rejecting his idea because it doesn't work. And that lack of argument, that lack of discussion, that lack of dealing with one another directly has put it to paid. It's ended that. That is no longer acceptable. And it can't be. It shouldn't have been anyway. As long as it was true, then yes, but it's not been true for a long time. We had 8 years of this. I'm glad I missed most of it. Really. Thank God I lived overseas. So, this change, because it did change everything. I stood back and as a Christian, I look at the issue and it's like, well, I have to say that I can't justify sin, but we all sin. And because of that, I can't reject a person for anything. I have to accept the fact that they are a person. They are human, and God loves them. And I've always seen that. The issue is not mine to decide. So I just kind of watched it play out. And I think it played out just fine. Redefine marriage? Okay, that's the decision. It doesn't justify sin. It's a social reality. Politics and my faith are two different things. My faith is going to hold up. Will politics? And I think it held up just fine. Now we have to get past all that and deal with each other as people again. Oh, imagine that. Oh, what a terrible fate. I think it's beautiful. Now we're past it. It's over. There's no more fighting on that. It's fine. It's good. We can talk to each other as people. That's where it should be anyway. So welcome to the new dimension, to the new paradigm, to the new world. Oh yeah, and it's not done yet, and there's still all kinds of craziness going on and things. But it's not going back to where it was. And I think that's the big problem that a lot of people that hate Trump have got to deal with. It's not going back to anywhere. It's going forward, or going on in time, and it'll become something else. Be careful what you make it. I'll return to this topic, but we'll see you later.